Alrighty, welcome back to my channel, May Between the Pages. My name is Taylor, and today we have episode 50, if you can believe it. Episode 50 of Page Chewing.
Congrats.
And this landmark episode, we are joined by none other than Adrian Gibson. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And congratulations,
as I was-
50 episodes. That's huge.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe we're here. Can you, PL?
No, I can't. But what a way to do it with Adrian. So that's
Hell
awesome.
yeah, I'm so excited.
Right. And I am also joined clearly by, I still can't do the right side, by my co-host, my wonderful co-host, PL Stuart. So, Adrian, you are kind of a jack of all trades of the bookish world. You know, I mean, illustrator, author, podcaster, just you name it, you've done it, reviewer. And I'm really curious how you balance it all, which we'll get to in a moment. But I'm curious, what keeps, as a general starting point, what keeps the passion going for all of these things that you do in the bookish community? Like, how do you keep the passion?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. It's not something I ever really think about because the people that I meet in the community that I've gotten to know, the friends that I've made, people that I met in real life, like I almost met PL in Toronto a little
So close.
so close, like about a little over a month ago. And those are the kinds of things that keep me going, is the ability to meet new people and talk to them about stuff that we love. And we're all just really deep down, like we're nerds and we love books and we love reading and we love writing and we love talking about this kind of stuff. So podcasting and writing and meeting all these authors, everything just kind of feeds naturally into one another, where I'm not super conscious of, is this making me happy? Because it's like, no, I'm really fucking happy doing it, and it's unconscious happiness at that point, you know?
Yeah, I do know that feeling 100%. Because, the book world is not lucrative. Let's put it that way. So
For some people it is. For corporations and some indie authors are doing really well. They know how to market themselves and stuff like that. But for the most part, it's like podcasters, book bloggers, reviewers, all these people, they are doing it because they love it. And all of that, like the fact that they do it, the fact that they are continuing to do it, is a reflection of how much they love it. And so anytime someone shits on like a reviewer or whatever, I'm like, they put in the time to read the book, they put in the time to think about the book, they put in the time to review and critique the book in a thoughtful manner. And authors have to respect that. Other readers have to respect that. If someone gives it a 1 star, it doesn't mean it's a 1 star for you. It's all a give and take, but you have to be kind of like pragmatic about it and understand that it's like everything in this world, at least in like the bookish world, is subjective. And so everyone's just kind of like doing it for what they love to do it for. And if someone else just decides to have a little negative like pity party about it, or to crap on somebody else, it's like you're wasting your time at that point.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. Unfortunately, we talked backstage about the audio. Possibly you're getting a little bit of fuzziness now with it, so I'm not sure
I will check that
what
out.
I can do. For anyone watching, we were having a little bit of issues backstage, so bear with us while we work through it.
Now?
Oh, one more time?
Is it better now?
Yes. It's clear. PL, you're on mute.
Sorry, maybe a little volume, Adrian. Sorry, maybe a little bit of volume. That might,
I got you, buddy.
just for me, just for the old man ears. Thanks. Yeah, it's better.
It works for me.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree that a lot of the people who do things in this space, for the majority of the people, it is because we love it, right? And so when someone does take the time to review something or put something out there, I think it's important to be mindful of how you engage with it, you know? And I think most people are pretty good at that, but there's always the loud majority that might not
Of
be
course.
so good.
And on the flip side, it's like, as someone who is reading this stuff, and if you post a review on Goodreads or Amazon or whatever, or if you're a book blogger and you post that review and stuff, also just be mindful of like other human beings and the fact that someone put their heart and soul into a book, usually, there are authors out there who do it as like more of like a commercial thing, but just understand that people are putting their hearts and souls into these things, and you don't want to just like dump on them completely. Have a little bit of uh, deftness when it comes to how you critique something, and just understand that it's like, yes, it is subjective in this case, and hopefully you're not like just completely hurting that author's feelings with whatever you have to say.
That's a really good point, in the fact that reviewing and interviewing as well, they're both an art. I think if you haven't done it, you might not realize just how much work goes into doing it. Whether it be like a verbal interview like this, or reviewing a book, or on a blog, which I know that you've done both of those things. And I'm curious, from my perspective, I've always enjoyed human interaction and interacting with people. And that's why interviewing kind of called to me, and I worked on getting better at it. But I'm curious, for you, what drew you to the mediums that you use now? Because you're a wonderful interviewer. So I'm just wondering, what got you started on that?
I'm very much like you. I'm a social person, and I joke with my co-host MJ Kuhn about this. It's like I'm an extrovert when I need to be, and then there are moments where I like to be an introvert and just kind of be like, I've had my fill of social interaction, and I just want to tell everybody to just like fuck off and be on my own for a little bit.
Social battery at zero. I know that feeling.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. So just the fact that the pandemic happened, I had a tattoo studio here in Quito in Ecuador, and had to close it down because of like lockdowns and all this different kind of stuff. And my son was on the way, and I was just thinking like, what the hell do I want to do with my time, kind of thing. Because as a tattoo artist at that point, I couldn't tattoo people. Like the proximity issue, the fact that you're like right up in someone's body, it just doesn't work with pandemic culture and the way that things were kind of unfolding at that time. And so I just kind of decided, like on a whim, I'm going to get into Twitter, and specifically book Twitter, because I just wanted to talk about the stuff that I love, and that's fantasy and science fiction and books and reading and this kind of thing. And I just stumbled across David Walters and Fanfi Addict, and I had a couple of blogs that were kind of on my list of like, yeah, just kind of shoot an email and see what happens. And if I end up writing for a book blog, cool. So the first person that I wrote was actually David, and he wrote back and was like, yeah, man, you're in. Didn't even really say anything about like qualifications. He's very chill dude, and Fanfi Addict has kind of developed in this very DIY way. And then after a couple months there and reviewing books, I realized that reviewing isn't necessarily the kind of thing that I want to keep doing, that I love doing. Kind of like you, Taylor, where it's like, you know, just the social interaction aspect, especially when we were in the pandemic and not being able to talk to other people and that kind of thing. I just needed something. And so I asked everybody at Fanfi Addict, I was like, hey, is it cool with you guys if I start a podcast, or does anyone want to join it with me? Because I've been listening to podcasts since like 2007, I think, back when I was in high school and I was like into video games and listening to video game podcasts. And nobody wanted to do it with me. So I was like, okay, screw it, I'll do it myself. And just kind of use the resources of the blog and David and other people to start reaching out to authors about coming on the podcast. And the first episode I did was kind of just an intro by myself. And then the first guest I had was Hugh Howey, and I just like my shit.
Yeah.
For me, it was so invigorating to be able to start with someone whose book I really respect, whose work I really respect, and then to just keep the ball rolling. And it's like, I don't know, almost 3 years later, I think. No, 2 years. 2. So I started it back in 2021.
Wow.
And it's just like fed my soul creatively. And I stupidly decided to like start podcasting and writing fiction after my son was born, which is maybe not the smartest decision, but they're both very difficult things, and raising a child is a very difficult thing. And so it's just kind of been an amazing journey to balance all these different aspects of my life, and, you know, using the podcast as a platform to promote other authors and promote ideas and promote creativity and writing craft and different stuff like that. But at the same time, giving myself a masterclass with like every author that I talk to and be like, tell me your story, teach me what you have done, and I can apply those different lessons to my own writing journey, essentially.
Right. Yeah, I think the pandemic really had a huge effect on the community and the people who started things, because there's a huge chunk of this community that started at that time, because all of a sudden all of us, I think, are quite creative at the base, because of, you know, what we like, which is, you know, stories. And I think a lot of us found ourselves twiddling our thumbs like, well, what do I do with this energy now? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like
And
everyone feeling antsy and locked up just because of life and viruses and all this different kind of stuff, and
yeah.
you know, adjusting to how do we handle life locked in but also virtual. And
Right.
you know, I think the idea of like, we're just going to do a podcast virtually seemed like such a foreign concept before, but then during the pandemic, it's like, no, you got to work remotely, you got to do everything remotely, so why the hell not do a podcast remotely as well?
Oh, 100%. And in PL and I's experience, well, I don't want to speak for him, but I'm pretty sure he agrees. We found that for authors, honestly, most of the time, all you have to do is ask. Like, I found the barrier to entry, in order to be able to talk to authors, has not been that. It's more yourself that gets in the way, is what I'm trying to say, than the other way around. I don't know if you feel the same way, PL, but we've had a couple guests where we're like, I can't believe you're here right now. All we had to do was ask.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, and I think for Adrian, for you, I mean, you've had some of the biggest names, frankly, in science fiction and fantasy. Period. You've talked to them. You've done. You do so many things in the community. You do podcasts and interviews. You do the con. You moderate panels. You organize.
I've been
You know,
hosting
essentially.
these like author roundtables on the YouTube channel every month as well, just to kind of give people platform, because it's like, I agree with you both completely. I am bewildered at some of the people that we've had on, at everyone. The fact that anyone agrees at all is like, holy shit, this is really cool, you know? And just the fact that, you know, before I mentioned we're all nerds and we love this stuff. And when it comes down to it, authors are too, but I think a lot of readers put authors on pedestals. And then doing this podcast is what kind of humbled me in terms of the realities of this industry, and the fact that when it comes down to it, everyone who writes tends to love talking about writing craft, tends to love talking about fantasy or sci-fi or whatever they're writing. And they like to share these ideas with their peers, and they like to share these ideas with readers. And, you know, it's just kind of getting over the ego of, or the imposter syndrome of like, why would anyone want to talk to me about this stuff? And just being like, I'm going to go onto their website and write them an email on their contact form, or I'm going to get in touch with their agent, or I'm going to get in touch with like a publicist who's working with them on their current book, or I'm just going to shoot them a tweet or or whatever Zeet the fuck it is now, and or like a DM or something along those lines. It's like, just take the chance, and you'll be amazed at what the response will be like. Because it's like, I grew up loving Harry Potter and Aragon, and I talked to Christopher Paolini and lost my shit. And it's like, moments like that would not be possible if I did not just try. So
Yeah, that's a great message. That's a great message. And I think Taylor and I concur that we found the exact same thing, and even more so in that, and I can say this as an author as well as a blogger, that without podcasters, bloggers, booktubers getting word out about our works, posting reviews online, having us come and let people get to know us at a different level. Because the beauty of this virtual thing is that, someone across the other side of the world can hear you talk, hear your voice, get to know you a bit as a person, and obviously, and all these things. There's always some personal, at least some measure of personal stuff divulged, and you just feel closer to that author who before was just maybe a picture on the back of a book, and that in itself is just incredible. And I don't know if and I wish one thing that I wish I could do more, and I need to do more, and I try to do periodically what I can is, just thanking all the people, all the bloggers, all the podcasters, all the people who, that basically promote our works, and as you so aptly pointed out, do it for free, right? I see Among Thieves by the wonderful MJ Kuhn.
Just a subtle pimp.
Just a subtle little for your plug for your co-host there. Actually, thanks to you, we're blessed. We're gonna have her on the show coming up soon. And
heists and found family and people fucking each other over, as I like to say on every episode. Go pick up Among Thieves and its sequel, Bookish Thieves by MJ Kuhn.
I love it.
Yeah,
I love the plug.
Yeah, be reading that soon. And congrats, MJ, on the sequel. So we'll get to talk about Taylor and I will get to talk to her about that soon. But yeah, and that leads us to another point. So how did you and MJ start this co-host thing going on? How'd that connection happen?
I just invited her on the podcast last fall for an episode on heists and capers and SFF, and yeah, we just got along really well. I liked her sense of humor. I liked her presence, and when my second son was on the way, I was thinking of, speaking of balance, ways in which I could pivot the podcast such that I could continue doing it, but not have such a heavy load on myself. Because what I was doing before was like 3, 4, 5 authors on a panel. And the organization that went into that took a lot of effort, especially with time zones and things like that. I just became a master of time zones.
Existence.
Yeah.
Bane of my existence.
I became so attuned to like daylight savings, to different time zones, and people would be telling me like, are you sure that's the right time zone? Of course it's the right time zone. Like, don't even mess with me on that. But with MJ, we just really clicked, and I thought, maybe I want to change up the format. I've been doing that kind of author panel format for about a year at that point, so maybe try something different. And so I came up with some ideas, but then I realized like it would be way cooler if I was able to get a co-host in here to basically allow us to kind of soundboard off of each other, but also to give a bit of variety in terms of talking to a single author, but having multiple voices as opposed to just me, kind of thing, like what you two do. And so I just, like I mentioned before, I just DM'd her and was like, hey, have you ever thought of doing a podcast? And she's like, actually, yeah. But it was kind of in the brainstorming phase at that point. And I was like, here's my idea. Do you want to potentially do this with me? And she said yes. And we did like a test episode in December of last year and just chatted on FaceTime and got to know each other better. And yeah, we just clicked really fast. And the transition was quite seamless because of that, where it's like if people listen to the show, they probably think that MJ and I have been friends for a lot longer than we have. And in reality, we've only known each other since October. So
wow, I would not have guessed that at all. You're absolutely right.
But I love it. Like, I love having her on the podcast, and she's got the people that she knows, and so it's kind of like our respective connections within the industry, respective friends, the people that we want to boost, the people that we want to talk to. We've been able to merge that in a really nice way as well.
Yeah, obviously PL and I can speak for the benefits of having a co-host. A lot of the things that you mentioned, spot on. That click is super important to be able to hand off, the football, the what's the word I'm looking for? Not imaginary.
Baton.
maybe.
The baton. There we go.
Baton.
Not a football, that different shape. But yes, to be able to hit.
Who the hell knows?
Yeah, right. To be able to do that is extremely important.
Yeah.
But like exactly like you said, having another voice, another perspective, to be able to talk to an author, because sometimes you might have questions that you think are awesome, and then your co-host will come out and have an amazing question. You're like, I never would have thought of that. So you guys work seamlessly together, I can say. When I watch your stuff, it works really well. But before we move on, I just want to make sure I acknowledge some of the people who are here. We've got Epic. Hey, Epic, thanks for being here.
Hi.
We also have Connor. Hello.
Hello, Mr. Biceps, my nylon boy.
And Crystal as well. Dynamic duo. Hey, Crystal. Thanks so much for coming,
Crystal.
guys. You're our favorite too, Crystal.
Oh yeah, you're definitely one of our faves, Crystal. Always great to see you. Got to meet Crystal in person, finally.
I'm so jealous. Yeah. I'm sure you know the feeling, Adrian, being in a different area from everyone, but everyone gets together, and I'm over here in Japan. Like, this is unfair.
I mean, I'm in Ecuador, but I managed to wrangle everyone together. So it's like, at the very least, my son got sick while we were in Toronto, but it's like I hung out with MJ and Crystal. We had a nice day together. We went to the CN Tower, went to the aquarium, and Oliver was not having any of it. And then that evening, or I think the next day, Crystal and MJ met up with PL and Christian Cameron and a bunch of other authors. And I was at home taking care of Oliver, but I got to FaceTime everyone, which was really nice.
Yeah, that was awesome. Yeah, you were missed. You were definitely missed. We had a great time, but you were definitely missed. So.
Crystal says I give amazing hugs. You do too, Crystal. You receive amazing hugs.
Yeah.
It's as much about the reception as it is about the gift.
Thank you, Crystal. Right back at
you. Also, Connor says, I've been waiting for the next time I can hear Mr. Biceps in the sweet tenor of your voice. Now that is Shakespearean.
Yes, it is.
Poetic there.
It is.
Mr. Biceps, how I miss you.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the one thing I've been itching to ask you, Adrian, and I guess it's more somewhat on a personal level. So, how did you end up in Ecuador? And where are you from originally? And how did you end up in Ecuador?
So I'm originally Canadian, born in Toronto, but grew up on the West Coast in BC.
The T-Dot.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Specifically Mississauga.
Mississauga, yep. Lived there for a long time. All right.
So yeah, like PL's Hood. That's where I was born. But when I was very young, I moved to British Columbia. My whole family moved out there, and that's where I grew up. So it's like very much a West Coast boy.
Yeah.
I think that shaped me in ways that I can't even comprehend at this point. And after graduating high school, went to UBC in Vancouver, studied English literature. Didn't know what the hell I wanted to do at that point, but like that's what university's for, just with a hefty price tag. And after graduating from university, I was kind of like, okay, I want to leave Canada. I want to try something different. I want to go somewhere new. And my girlfriend at the time was planning on doing her master's in Europe. And so she had a couple different cities, or a few different cities in mind in terms of universities and programs and stuff like that. So I told her, apply whichever one you end up at, or whichever one accepts you, and you decide I want to go there, like, fuck it, I'll move there with you. And it ended up being Berlin. So I lived in Berlin for 3 years, and that was where I learned how to tattoo and became a tattoo artist, self-employed tattoo artist, like private studio at home, just kind of practicing on myself. Like I have, I don't know, I think more than 60 tattoos at this point, and at least 30 of them are myself. Like I did them as practice over the years.
You got to get your hours in somehow, right?
Exactly. And it's like, thighs are a great place. Just like smoke a joint and tattoo myself. What's wrong? And while I was in Berlin, broke up with that girlfriend, and then was still living in Berlin and tattooing, and ended up working at a studio, and went on vacation to Barcelona. And when I was in Barcelona, met my wife, my now wife, at a club. She was dancing on a table, and she was beautiful. And we ended up talking for like 4 hours. And the next day, she messaged me and was like, "Hey, are you still in Barcelona?" I'm like, "Nope, I am on a plane, or like at the airport about to board a plane." So we just ended up staying in touch. And then eventually, like, I went back to Barcelona and we really hit it off and started doing kind of like long distance. She came to Berlin, I would go back to Barcelona, and she's Ecuadorian. So when she finished her master's program, she said, much like my experience in Vancouver, I got to go back somewhere. And then I said, fuck it, I'll go with you, and ended up in Ecuador, um, where I've been for about 7 years now. Yeah.
I love that. As someone else who, lives in a place that I was not born in, loves travel. I studied abroad in Florence, Italy, and things like that. Like, you just, once you get bit by that bug, you can't stop. And so I think that type of experience really changes who you are as a person. So I've always wondered the same thing. I'm glad PL asked. It's a fascinating story.
But it's I mean, poor our parents, but
Yeah.
at the same time, like, hey, at least you got somewhere fucking awesome to go visit. Like, my parents have been to
Right.
Ireland 3 times, taken them to Galapagos, taken them to the Amazon, we went to Peru and Machu Picchu, and
Mm,
a ton of amazing places that I doubt they ever would have taken the initiative to say, like, I'm going to go to South America. Um,
right.
Except that now they have a son there, and now they have grandchildren here. And so that initiative doesn't even really need to take place, because it's like baked into the fact that, hey, you want to see your grandkids, come on down. But
Exactly.
yeah.
Actually, this is again a little bit just of a specific question, but I'm curious. Do you guys deal with bilingual? How do you manage a bilingual household, or is it mainly just English speaking? Because I'm having an interesting experience with my daughter now.
Mhm.
Japanese English are very far from each other, and
Yeah.
bless my parents' hearts, they do their absolute best to speak Japanese.
Mhm.
But it's a very interesting situation. So I'm curious, do you juggle that as well?
Yeah, but it's pretty seamless at this point. Like, I spoke zero
Oh.
Spanish when I first came here, and 7 years later, like, I'm fluent and, can have full conversations with people, go to government offices and apply for visas, like everything
Hmm.
without issue. And we basically came to the conclusion that, like, Natalia and I, my wife and I, we speak to each other in English, for the most part. But it's like any interaction with her family, any interactions with our friends, we speak in Spanish. With our sons, I speak in English to them, and my wife speaks in Spanish to them. But also with my sons, like, I've taught them American Sign Language because both of my parents are deaf. So my son Oliver, for instance, it's like he can switch between English and Spanish, no problem. He will speak to me in English and he will speak to his mom in Spanish. And when we went to Canada to visit my family, before heading to Toronto, like, he was using basic sign language with my parents, which made them unbelievably happy. But it is really difficult to find that balance. But I think it has to kind of be, sort of like a firm set of rules and just the consistency and routine of, like, just talk to your kid in your native language and they will pick it up because they are such sponges.
Wow,
Yes.
that's incredible. Well, again,
That's
I
such
can't.
a cool set of skills for your son to have. Sorry if y'all go ahead, but that's
Oh no,
awesome.
no, no, not at all. That's amazing, and kudos to you and your wife, for making those decisions that are certainly only going to enrich your children's lives and going to make them just these incredibly well-rounded human beings, learning sign and being multilingual.
Mhm.
But yeah, I just quickly want to comment. I don't weep for you because being in Ecuador and then prior to that being in BC, which I love, like the mountain, like I mean, wow, what a life, eh? Like I don't, I like
Just go from
that's
one volcanic cordillera to another. Just like,
yeah.
I love me some mountains, man. I'm a mountain boy at heart. So
Oh, it's just gorgeous. When I went to BC
Yes.
for the first time, Deb and I were like, "Is there any way we can move here?" And we thought about it. Believe me, hard.
And then
It
you look at the
was.
prices of real estate in Vancouver, and you're like, "Oh shit, no, this is horrible."
Yeah. You think the GTA is bad. You think the Great Toronto is bad, and then you look at Vancouver. It's okay. Well, maybe not. But actually, we went to Chilliwack, and
Nice.
back then it was pretty reasonable, and just like the whole area, like Cultus Lake, and it's just wow, stunning. But I can only imagine what Ecuador is like. I've never been to South America, but I can only imagine it's
It's like
stunning.
every possible biome just crammed into a country the size of like, I don't even think it's as big as Ontario,
Yeah.
to be honest. So
Wow.
yeah, it's like I can
Spoiled for beauty.
drive like 6 hours to the west and go to the coast. I can drive 3 hours to the east and go to the Amazon, like deep Amazon. And I've had some amazing experiences there. And just like the whole Andes mountain chain is beautiful. Yeah, it's unbelievable. And Galapagos Islands, like people don't necessarily link like Galapagos with
Yeah.
Ecuador, but it's like, no, it's part of this country. You have to land here before you go there. And
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah, that is incredible. Have you met and as formed as part of now your burgeoning new community Spanish authors who write in Spanish, uh, authors who write sci-fi fantasy in Spanish, and is that now, especially now that you're speaking, is that part of your new life as well?
Unfortunately, no. Like the community, okay, so when it comes to Spanish literature, Spain is king. Um, it's usually like Spain, Mexico, and Cuba has like a really big sci-fi and fantasy kind of history to it. But I was talking recently to Gabriela Romero La Cruz because she was on the podcast, and we'll have some episodes coming out soon with her. She's from Venezuela, and it's kind of difficult to unite this idea of like sci-fi fantasy with South American societies, South American cultures, South American cities and communities. Because here in Quito, like, or in Ecuador in general, I've reached out to English speaking authors that live in Ecuador, but it's kind of like an expat SFF community, or, they write other genres, of course, thrillers and crime and romance and all that kind of stuff. But that's mostly centered in a city to the south called Cuenca. And it's just, yeah, it's kind of this weird, disparate kind of vibe to it. It is a bit disappointing because it's like I would love to just go out there and meet other sci-fi and fantasy authors, but those two kind of hands just haven't really held yet, unfortunately. But hopefully that will change in the future. It would be really cool to see my future books get translated into Spanish, or just work with translators and kind of figure out how that works. But yeah, for now, it's an unfortunate disconnect in that sense.
I agree. I've looked into, because I have some Japanese authors that I really enjoy, and it's not necessarily a genre-based issue. It's more, booktube is not a thing. Like if you search it in Japanese, it's not. There's a couple book reviews
Yeah.
out there, but it doesn't have the community like the English-speaking community
And I
has.
imagine it's more
Really.
geared towards something like manga or anime or whatever.
Yes,
to
that's
fiction.
that's the wheelhouse here.
Yeah.
Understandably so.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's definitely a different focus. Yeah.
It is a bummer. It is a bummer though, because it's like going to just thinking like I'm gonna go to Canada, and who lives in such and such city, and it's like go to Vancouver, and who do I know there? Like Sebastian de Castel, Ben Galley, K.S. Veloso, Andy Peliquin, and we all just met up and had like a picnic at the beach, or like who's in Toronto, and it's like PL is in Windsor, close enough, and
I'm in Barrie now, closer. I'm closer. I'm in Barrie now.
You're in Barrie now?
Yeah, closer.
My cousin runs a restaurant there, so I'm gonna.
Oh wow, you gotta hit me up and get the name. Yeah, I gotta
Definitely.
check it out. Thank you.
Yeah, but just like Crystal's up in Ottawa, and just kind of knowing that like we can be in a place, and we've only met virtually, but we can connect and we can meet each other in person. And Crystal can say like, PL gives great hugs, or like Adrian gives great hugs. And it's like, Crystal, you give great hugs too. And it was so fucking good to meet you in person. And I think that I'm hoping one day that I'll be able to experience that with the Ecuadorian SFF community, or some aspect of the Spanish speaking SFF community, or for you, Taylor, to be able to experience that with Japanese as well. So
yeah, it's a bridge to cross. And also, even if you're fluent, I think as both of us are, there's still like a level of disconnect, I would say, if you're not from that place. Not mistrust, that's not the right word that I want to use, but
there's a immediate misinterpretation based on the fact that we're from Western countries, to be like,
yes,
no, that moment in their head where they realize like, oh shit, they speak my language, is a really beautiful moment and kind of fun a lot of the time.
Yes.
To be like, in their language, say like, hey, I understand everything you're saying. And for them to be like, oh.
I'm kind of curious in Spanish if you have this. There's like a meme basically in Japan where my husband will step back. He's Japanese, but he'll step back and I will, order or whatever. But the person, the staff will always look at my husband and then not answer. They'll answer my husband in Japanese, even though he's not speaking. And so if you don't look Japanese, there's like a mental block for some Japanese people where they can't process that you're speaking the language. And I think it's just a difficult language to learn, but it's kind of become like a meme at this point. So I wonder if Spanish has anything like that.
No, I've never experienced anything like that. Usually they're just kind of like, they will assume that I can't speak Spanish, but then the moment that they clue into that fact, it's like really quick transition into like, let's just like shoot the shit and be normal about this kind of thing. But I've never experienced anything like that where they're like, I'm talking to them, but they're like looking at my wife or anything like that. That to me is just like, it's bizarre. It is bizarre.
It's something. Yeah. It's something.
I would be annoyed. I'd be like, look at me. I'm the one talking.
It is. It's annoying. And my husband just walks away now. It's like, I'm not available to be spoken to. So, it's so weird to be in a diaspora. A good weird.
Yeah. But it's enlightening, I think, because we do come from Western cultures, to at least have some semblance of what it's like for someone from another culture to come to a Western culture.
Yes.
That culture shock element is really, really big and has been life-changing for me, to be able to empathize with other people and empathize with their experiences, even though it's something that my experience is different from theirs and I will never experience what they have, but to at least have that kind of connection, for me, bridges a gap that is far too often filled with judgment or misunderstanding or discrimination or what have you.
Nothing humbles you quicker than going to another country. You're like, I know nothing.
Exactly. Be like, I don't speak the language. I can't do anything. Like, I can't do anything at all. It's like, do you want to go to the bathroom? Have fun. Like, do you want to order food or buy food or go to a grocery store? Like, have a great time. You're going to be stressed as hell for a while, because it takes a long time to adapt to a culture and learn a language.
100%. Wow.
Kudos to you both. I'm so impressed and amazed by the fact that, what you both have done and creating these lives for yourselves, outside of where you're from. And, I'm sure it's very enriching and it's amazing, but at the same time, challenges, you've overcome a lot of challenges. So kudos to you both, but obviously it's worked out really well. So
challenge, life is nothing without challenge, because without challenge, you never have a moment where you can fail. And if you never fail, then you never learn. And those are the building blocks for a life with meaning, is to be able to learn from experiences and learn from failures and move forward and understand, this is what I've done, this is where I've come from, and this is how I can be, and this is how I can, adapt my life in a way that makes me happy, in a way that makes other people happy, and the connections that I can make, and if you just go through life and don't learn from anything and
Yeah.
just be a shitty person and never change, then everyone's going to be like, well, he's a shitty person. I don't want to spend time with you. and,
Right.
and nothing ever gets better because it's just a self-perpetuating loop of you're stubborn and you don't want to change or adapt and learn from everything that's going on around you. And therefore, no one else is going to want to be with you. And that is just going to continue this cycle of the world sucks. Everyone hates me, blah, blah, blah. It's like, you have to think about what you're doing and how other people might perceive you. And even if it's annoying to think like, how am I acting and how might another person take that? Having that moment of self-reflection is so important. And in day-to-day life, it's like that kind of self-reflection usually happens all the time, and it's super beneficial for living in another country, but also, just going to the places that you grew up in, or living your everyday life kind of thing, or, extending yourself beyond the boundaries of normality, like doing a podcast. Even if it's virtual, you are still putting yourself out there for other people to see, talking to other people, and authors will say like, hey, that was a great interview. Like, thank you. I love the questions. Or they'll end the call as soon as they can after you finish recording and be like, I never want to talk to that person again.
One or the other, right? Well, I think one of the beauties of reading is it allows people to do exactly what you said without having to physically move. Like PL's books, The Drowned Kingdom, there's a lot of reflections on, how you interact with different cultures and how that can change you as a person, and how important it is, like you said, that self-reflection. We may read about main characters all the time and we feel like the main character in our lives, but we're part of a larger world, right? So
Yeah. Speaking of writing and illustrating, I mean, first of all, I know you do both, Adrian, and we want to learn all about that. I'm looking over your shoulder at the artwork there, and I'm assuming you did that.
Yeah, all this
Like,
is mine.
that's incredible. Like, wow, like that's amazing. Wow, like I'm just stunned. So, does that? So, can you tell us about your artwork? How do you get into that? Yeah, it's just incredible.
Um, Art is something that I've done for my whole life. My dad was a cartographer as a professional working for the Canadian government, and his dream was to be a cartoonist, essentially. But in an era where it was like Sunday newspaper, like comic funnies, Peanuts and all those different kinds of comics were his jam, and that was his dream. But life is life, and nothing is ever perfect. But he was able to apply his artistic skills in cartography, but he was also able to pass that on. Out of my three brothers and I, like I'm the only one who really picked up like the art side of things. But I've been drawing for my whole life, like as long as I can remember. I used to draw, like I never wrote fanfic, but I drew fanfic comics and fanfic art of the things that I loved that I was reading. And my parents saved all of that. So I've now got binders, like 3-ring binders full of like
oh no.
lined paper comics and drawings and fanfic and stuff like that. And
So
all of
cute.
my school projects, like there's so much art involved in that. So it's just something that's been in my life forever. It's kind of like I can remember drawing as much as I can remember speaking, pretty much. And as I got older, just trying to figure out like how do I want to apply these skills? Do I want to? Yeah, Connor, fanfic comics actually are incredible, dude. I should draw Mr. Biceps comic, and your alter ego will be Nylon Boy. It'll be like the best spin on like like Clark Kent, Superman kind of vibe. But as I got older, I was trying to wrestle with this balance of like how can I do art but also make it a profession. And I thought about graphic design. I thought about all different kinds of things, animation. But eventually I landed on English lit because it's like writing is also something that's super important to me. And journalism was kind of like the track that I wanted to go down. And so in university, it was kind of like drawing was just something I did for fun in my spare time. And after I graduated and then went to Berlin and picked up tattooing, that rekindled my love for art. That rekindled my love for what this medium can do. And to be able to apply that medium to the human body was particularly just mind blowing. Like it was a sublime discovery because I'd already had tattoos at that point, but I had no idea what it was like to put that tattoo on somebody else. You know what I mean? It was just like, holy shit.
I imagine. It gives your art a new life, a new breath, kind of, because it is living now.
Yeah.
Right?
And at the same time, it's like I had to learn so much there in terms of like tattooing is not just art. Tattooing is you are an entrepreneur. You are a biologist because you have to know about skin and you have to know about the way that skin works and the way that ink and needles interact with the skin and the way that skin heals and certain conditions that people have on their skin and all these different kinds of facets, as well as being an artist, as well as being a creative person. But you have to understand that it's like being a self-published author. Like you have to understand that you are a single creative individual putting on many different hats in terms of, understanding business, understanding marketing, understanding social media, understanding writing, and then on top of that, like editing and covers and all this different kind of stuff. Tattooing is the same. Like you have to wear many different hats. But what tattooing did for me is it taught me to hone my illustration and my art style, and my art and my tattoos, kind of grew and developed and were honed in this like symbiotic loop type thing where I was developing my art style to better accommodate the restrictions of skin. But that helped push my art style farther. And then I would learn how to apply my art style to a tattoo versus an illustration where I can go into so much more detail. And so these two things really came together in this beautiful relationship that helped me, understand like what my style is, what my artistic voice is in the sense of art and tattooing and that kind of stuff. And at the same time, now being able to apply it to writing. I think there was someone in the comments, Epic Tales, asked, does Adrian do illustrations of the characters in his book? I did illustrations for, so I'm writing 2 books right now. One of them is called Spore City, and I did 3 character portraits to understand the sort of vibe and look of the 3 main POV characters. So one of them is behind me right here. His name's Koji.
I love it.
He is a mushroom-headed.
That is awesome.
Actually, do you have? If I can do the screen share, I can show you.
Oh yeah, please.
Sure.
In more detail.
Sure.
Okay.
I think I have it set at anyone can share, I believe. Do you have the option on your side?
Okay. Yeah, I do. All right. I will show this to you guys. So basically, for this world, I use my art as like a kind of like a world building phase, so to speak, where I used art as a way to imagine different aspects of this world, sort of the feel for it, as well as the biology of like the characters and stuff like that. So I'll have it up in like 5 seconds.
Yeah, I was going to say, while just giving you time to do that, do you find that this visual way that you see world building, do you do that when you read other people's books? Do you find you're a super visual reader?
100%. Yeah, I'm such a visual reader. Where it's like if someone nails description, I'm like, you just sucked me in so well.
I'm jealous. I don't have an artistic bone in my body.
That's not true. That's not true. I don't buy that. Just
Well, not
watching
when
your
it comes to drawing.
just watching your vlogs, and watching the way you put videos together. There's a lot of artistry
I appreciate
involved.
that.
So for sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna see if I can pull this into.
Also, just to let you know, your crackle is back if you
All
wanted
right, I
to
will
come out
fix
and
that
back
right
in.
now.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I think I might have to pull this into Firefox in order for me to show it because it's being weird. Okay,
Okay.
I think I can do this. Let's see.
Yeah, no pressure. Take your time. We can pull up some of the comments about the tattoos here. We have Bex says,
Oh,
"Can I
Bex.
A, smoke a joint with you?" And 2, will you tattoo me?
If we're in the same place, hell yeah. Yeah, I would love that. Okay, Taylor, in the bottom, can you
Yes.
see? Yeah, can you see?
Yes, I
there's like
can.
yeah, there you can pull it
Got
up.
it.
Oh, there you go. Oh, wow.
That is
Oh,
so
man.
cool.
That's incredible. Oh,
Wow.
man.
So he's got a mushroom attached to his head? Is it actually
Yeah,
part
it's
of
like the kind of thing with this world is that it's a secondary world, very heavily inspired by Japan, and
Mm.
Oh.
the island nation that it takes place on was essentially distanced from the rest of humanity, which developed into normal humans. But this particular island, these humans merged symbiotically with fungi, and now they're fungal people. So
Huh.
Wow.
That is so cool. I'm sold.
Yeah, like what? Oh, okay. Like this is so obviously I'm bringing with questions here. Just so this is just so this art is incredible. Are you going to do your own covers? Are you going to sell? Well, sorry, I should back that. Probably, do you plan to self-publish? Because that's I shouldn't assume because you might be querying. But if are you planning to do? Is there going to be some element of you hoping to do illustrations, not just inside the book, but perhaps the cover?
yeah, okay. So I actually had a discussion recently with like a graphic designer who will be doing the design for Spore City, and he and I were joking about like artists who think their style might work for covers, and it's like I know I love my style and I'm really proud of it, but I know it wouldn't work for a cover, and so basically my plan is 2024 quarter 1, so like first 3 months of the next year, I'm going to be self-publishing my debut, and then later in the year, probably in the early fall, I'll be self-publishing again, Spore City. And for both of those, I'm working with Felix Ortiz, who's a good friend of mine, and his covers are amazing.
Wow, he is
So
incredible.
Felix is going to be helping me out with the cover design or the cover art for both of those books. So Mushroom Blues in the first 3 months of 2024. I'm in revision for that. I've got an editor lined up. I've got Felix booked for the art. I'll be doing the cover design and graphic design myself, as that's something I also did in the past, like freelance graphic design work while I was in Berlin. And my plan is to incorporate my design and my illustration into the interiors of the books. So Spore City will have that portrait and the portrait of the other 2 main characters in the book for everyone to see. There's going to be custom illustrations that are incorporated into the book as well. Mushroom Blues, I'm kind of doing a lot more graphic design for that as opposed to using my original illustrations, but it's still really fun to be able to apply those skills to books, to just be able to say like, I think bit by bit, every single book that someone reads that's self-pub, that's indie, to show them like self-pub and indie is not like a backup plan.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
exactly.
Self-pub and indie is, for me, the coolest DIY space that exists in publishing and science fiction and fantasy, period. Because I came from, tattooing myself and private studios and whatnot in Berlin, and that punk ethos that was kind of like from like Cold War era in Berlin still exists today, but it's just shifted, and it's evolved into something that I think is really beautiful, because it's like punk aesthetics and punk mentalities and DIY and people who are really like entrepreneurial. with that ethos, and self-pub is that. And so I spent a lot of time thinking my dream before was I want to go trad pub, like I want to query my book, I want to get an agent, all that different kind of stuff. And just all the conversations that I've had with authors through the podcast has basically dissuaded me from that path and made me realize like it is not for me. It is for a lot of people, and that's awesome, you know? But as someone who is financially stable and I can do that upfront investment, which is a big hurdle for a lot of people, who is design oriented and artistic, visually artistic, to be able to say like I can put up my debut novel and include these visual elements in it, which like how many publishers would say yes to that? They'd be like, yeah, fuck no, too many pages, like printing costs, dude.
Yeah.
And for me to be able to do that on my own and just say like I want to put my everything into this and use that DIY kind of ethos is to me it's really important. Is to me it's like it speaks to me as an individual, it speaks to me as a creative, and if I can put something out that some people love and appreciate the writing and the story and the world as much as the physical book itself, to me that's just beautiful. And I was like, I don't give a shit like about New York Times bestselling lists. Like I don't need to win awards, you know. I want to get my stories out there, and I want to, like I'm doing with the podcast, like I'm doing with all the people that I met in the community, I want to interact with people. I want to share the things that I love with them. And if they love it back, awesome. If they don't, that's cool. That's your opinion. That's totally fine. You know, but for me to be able to have it out there and let people read it, let people see it and enjoy it for its physical form as well as its imaginative form is just, yeah, to me, that's like sublime.
Oh, brother, you're inspiring me now, man. You're inspiring me. So well said. So very articulate in how you laid that out. And for me personally, I'm just excited because we're not going to have to wait an inordinate period of time to see your books. And as you said, that's the glory of self-publishing. You know, when you're, as you said, if you have the financial wherewithal and you bring all kinds of extra skills to the table, especially in terms of the artistry, the illustrations and stuff. Yeah, like, you know, you just go for it and you don't have to wait for, you know, the traditional publishing industry to bless you and say, okay, we're gonna take you aboard, and you might have to wait a while until we get it out there. But so yeah, I totally agree with you. Obviously, as a self-published author, I completely agree. But now I'm just over the moon excited now to see your stuff come out. I can't wait. I have no doubt you're going to be extremely successful, Adrian. I have zero doubt that you know. Oh, and Crystal has. Oh, maybe she's got a sneak peek.
She's one of my alpha
She says.
So.
She says Adrian's writing is so buttery smooth. I got the absolute honor of reading a few chapters, and I'm ravenous for more.
Crystal, you made that as sexy as possible.
You did. Buttery smooth, ravenous.
No, coming from Crystal Batar, who is, you know, I think University acknowledged as a phenomenal writer, just an awesome writer. You know, an SPFUO finalist, and you know, like you said, Brightwash for me was my book of the year, indie book of the year for a couple of years ago. Like, to get that kind of feedback and praise, Adrian, must be very gratifying for you.
Oh no, for me it's like this. Basically, a lot of authors have to deal with imposter syndrome at like a later point, especially if you go down the traditional route, where, you know, you have the imposter syndrome of like, is an agent going to like this? Or once you get an agent, is an editor going to like this? Are they going to pick it up? And then once the editor picks it up and the book is going to get set for publication, are the readers going to like this? And for me, it's like, I've gone through all those fucking hurdles just by being on my podcast and being a podcast host and meeting all these different authors and understanding the realities of different kinds of situations across the board, from indie to trad to hybrid, all across the board. And, you know, the imposter syndrome of just being a podcast host and thinking like, why do these people want to talk to me? And I think all of that, plus the fact that I tattooed for so long and had to get over the, I think it's an even bigger hurdle than being an author and being published and everything like that. But with tattoos, the hurdle to get over is I'm going to put something permanent on someone's skin, and that is fucking terrifying. And getting
Yes.
over that, like,
I always wondered how tattoo artists do it, because like you can't be hungover one morning and mess it up. Like that's not a thing that can happen. Like it's not there's no room for error. I have so much respect for tattoo artists, because I don't know if my heart could take it. Obviously I love being on the receiving end, but the giving end, I don't know.
Yeah, and it's extremely stressful, and there are many tattoos that I've done over my career where I was like in the midst of a tattoo, just like feeling my armpits just drenched. I'm just like, we're gonna get through this. We're gonna get through this. Like, you can do it, bud. You can do it. And I think the thick skin that I developed through tattooing is so perfectly translatable to writing, and being able to send my story, to people like Crystal and to other authors and all the different author friends that I've become acquainted with or become really good friends with, or, asking for blurbs, and like blurbs is a thing that I've heard a lot of authors say, like, "Oh, I'm so scared to do this." And for me, I just like, I had a list of all people who have been on my podcast before, all people that I've met multiple times virtually, some of them I met in person, and just saying like, I'm going to wing it just like I did for the podcast. If they say that they will read it, to me, that is like, that is a small victory. And I will take those small victories and I will fucking cherish them to the end of my days, and be like, thank you for at least considering to read my book, taking the time out of your day or your week or whatever to read my book. Like, that is so meaningful to me. And, I've just kind of set myself up by accident in a great way with the podcast to be like, now I'm going to also publish my work. I have a platform to promote. I have tons of authors that I know and I respect and I love, friends that I have, people who will support me, and all of that love and all of that support, I will give back to them as much as I can. Because if I've learned nothing in this industry, like the most important thing is like give and take, and do everything that you can to spread positivity amongst this community, because all the negativity is the shit that rises to the surface, and that is the stuff that we do not need. We need to bring the positivity up. We need to support our fellow authors. We are not in competition with each other the way that publishing corporations like to portray it as, because for them it's about the bottom line. From author to author, it's like, no, I love the fact that you're writing. I love the fact that you're putting your work out there. Do your thing, and I will respect that and support you as much as I can.
That was, again, so well said. So well said, Adrian. And that goes for the entirety of the writer community, bloggers, editors, agents, everyone who's involved and who supports each other. And like you said, it's not competitive. And, I can say this, especially as self-published authors, the self-published community, I see nothing but love there, and the blogging community within, especially the ones that are into science fiction and fantasy, nothing but love. And it's this communal love where, I think some of the best promotion and some of the best advocacy you're going to get is from fellow authors, right? And
good on anyone who's gotten like a Kirkus review, good on anyone who's gotten like a star in like Publishers Weekly, et cetera, et cetera. It's like, those are totally valid career goals to have. But I think what everyone has to understand is that different authors have different goals.
Yes.
And the benchmark that you set for yourself is the most important. It doesn't matter what the hell anyone else thinks, what the hell anyone else tells you to do. Your benchmarks are the most important benchmarks. And for me to have the benchmark of like, I want to put my stuff out there and I want to craft it with love and I want to share it with people and just get it out into the world and see what they think and talk to them. Like, to be able to talk to people and see their reactions, hear their reactions, and kind of get that feedback loop, to me is the most like invigorating thought in terms of this whole journey. Like, I don't need to be a bestseller. I don't need to win awards. I don't need to get starred reviews. The fact that people pick up my book and took the time out of their life to read my work, and even beyond that, to comment on it, like, thank you. Thank you so much for doing that. And it's like, I haven't even gotten to that point yet, but I'm already so grateful for anyone who does that for other authors' work, because that means so much more than people realize.
Yes, 100%. And it sounds like for me as well, the product, the end product, the physical thing is important to you as well. Whereas maybe for some authors, like you said, goals are different, right? So for some authors, the story is the main thing.
Yeah.
But for you, it sounds like having a cohesive product that visually looks like it represents the world you're imagining in your head, which matches the artistic side of you, is important. So self-pub is perfect for that. Like you said, you have so much of an influence on that you can influence the entire package, you know. And as someone who loves pretty things, you know, it's my kryptonite. My wallet hates me, but I completely understand the idea of wanting the product to look the way that you want it to. You know, there's nothing wrong with that goal.
Yeah, there's there are so many readers out there who love their special editions, and
hey now.
I would love to be that kind of person, but it's kind of like my desire doesn't necessarily meet with reality. And I'm like, I live in South America, and shipping is shit in general. And to be, you know, willfully setting myself up where I'm like, I'm gonna send something to Ecuador, and I'm probably just gonna like pay out of my ass for it. I just have to be realistic about these things. So I'm like, my desire, I wish I could indulge, but wallet wins out on this one. But with my own work where I have the control, I'm like, yes, I want to be able to match the passion that I have for this story with a visual package that people are going to be like, I'm so proud to display that on my shelf. You know what I mean? To be like, whether you buy it in hardback, whether you buy it in paperback, whether you have an ebook, even, for someone to be like, this is not just words, like there's more to it than that, for me is really exciting as someone who, like, I've been talking to my friend Ronnie Verdi, author of The First Binding, about like comics and that medium, and something he's really interested in, and something that I've done in the past, like fanfic comics kind of stuff. So we're talking about like potentially collaborating on something there down the line. And that has me excited, because I'm like, the symbiosis of visual and textual to me is magical. Like, I love it. And I want to give that to people. I want to be like, if you pay for my book, I'm going to make sure that you are like, damn, you're looking at the visuals on the page and you're reading the text, and it immerses you even more into the world than just what the text can do, because that's just the kind of storyteller that I am. It's like a visual storyteller as well as a textual storyteller. So,
well, you know, again, I said this before, Adrian, but it's one of the coolest things, and you've seen it too, obviously, in your role as a blogger, as a podcaster. And Taylor and I get to see it, and it's amazing. Is that you know, we know how beloved you are in the community. We know what you've done to support other people. You know, we can see it, and we can see the passion that you have for everything connected with this space. And you know, and everyone's journey is different. But for us, for example, you look at someone like Philip Chase, right? Who, again, amazing booktuber, you know, fantastic person, great human being, and seeing him take his journey into self-published author, and just the groundswell support and everybody just getting behind him. I mean, you are certainly gonna have that as well in spades, right? And that's why we have no doubt you're gonna do. You know, I know it's not a goal, and that's the purity, I think, of it. That it's like you said, you're not worried about getting a best-selling tag, but those are gonna come because you're going to have that, you have, you obviously have the talent, you have the passion for the work, but you have all these people behind you. And, it's funny that, yeah, it takes a village to make a book in a way, right? And all the people behind the scenes that people don't necessarily understand have a piece, have a hand in books coming out and being successful. And I can tell you're on that same trajectory, no doubt, brother. So we can't wait. We're just so excited for you, so happy for you.
Yeah, I was even chatting with MJ this past week. I was like, I spent like a good 2 hours on the weekend, like mapping out like potential next fucking decade of like books that I want to write and put out, and just like
You're speaking to PL's soul right now.
and she's like, MJ is like an Excel demon, and I love her so much. And just like, I didn't use Excel, but she was so happy. Like her inner plotter like her inner plotter and like outliner was just so happy that it's like, I'm just nerding out about all the ideas that I have, and to think like, shit, man, like if I do this and all of these end up being released, like I'll be like 42 at that point, which isn't even that old, It's like
You'll
42.
still be younger. You'll still be younger than me when I first published. You'll be a decade younger than me.
Yeah.
When I first published. So think about that.
Yeah, man. So it's like I realized, yeah, MJ is such an Excel demon. But I realized that me getting into this now is the best time that I could have done it, in the sense that I have the passion and I have the drive. It doesn't matter that I'm balancing, family and podcasting and everything else that's going on in my life. It's like, if you let the things that make you passionate linger and fall by the wayside, the regret that will come down the road is just unbearable to think about, And so it's like, I need to get these stories out now. I need to, put this out in the world and share it with the people that I care about. And PL, like what you're talking about earlier, it's like, community is everything, man. Like, community is essential. It is key. It is key to human life. It is key to being an individual within a community. It is key to the SFF community, to publishing, to being an author, all these different things. It's like, humans are nothing without community. And the fact that I have beautiful people behind my back, I'm like, I couldn't be more thankful, to have like someone like Crystal and be like, I met you in real life and you're fucking awesome. And then it's like, you're going to be my alpha reader and you're going to have my back. And that to me is so, so important.
Well, I think one correlation between, PL mentioned Philip Chase earlier and you in the same breath. And I think what you two have in common is you're getting back what you've put in. Like, both you and Philip Chase have put out so much work for the community, and without asking for returns, because it was a pure desire to put those things out in the community. And now you're getting the returns of that. And that, in my opinion, that's how life works pretty much, is, if you put things out with those pure intentions and really, really do that groundwork, you're going to see returns on that. And I can't wait to see it come back for you. When you release your book.
I just can't wait to share it with everyone,
I'm excited. And I realized you gave us a pitch about the world and the awesome portrait, but like, what's your one-liner? What's your elevator pitch for your book? What's it really about?
For which one? PL, you're muted, bud.
Oh, sorry.
No. PL's muted.
Both. My apologies. Both books.
Both. Okay.
We want to hear both books.
Mushroom Blues, Quick Comp, True Detective Meets Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer. Essentially, a human detective is investigating the murder of a dead child who washed up on the shores of Neokonoko, which is the capital city of a war-torn country that was invaded by this main character's homeland. So very much True Detective vibes, in the sense of like uneasy buddy cop relationship. In terms of world building, it is full of fungus and very heavily inspired by post-World War II Japan and the occupation by American forces in Tokyo, and incorporating elements from history, incorporating so much from my own personal life, and talking a lot about things that we've mentioned before in terms of like empathy for others and concepts of otherness and discrimination meeting with understanding and revelation. And so that's Mushroom Blues is very much like a neo-noir vibe, very heavily inspired by, you know, a lot of the detective and hard-boiled fiction that I love and grew up with, Raymond Chandler, Dashiell Hammett, that kind of stuff, but with a very modern vibe and lots of mushrooms. Spore City, on the other hand, that is more, takes place 30 years after Mushroom Blues. So these are both the beginnings of different series. Mushroom Blues, I already have 4 books planned out for that. Spore City is a trilogy. And Spore City is basically Blade Runner meets The Last of Us, but just no zombies. And that one is much more cyberpunk, much more technology. A lot of it is dealing with the interactions between corporations and societies. And the 3 main characters, one of them is actually from Mushroom Blues. He becomes a POV character later on in his life. The other one is a corporate spy who is infiltrating basically like a technology social media corporation in order to steal its secrets and its IP. And then the other character is a Yakuza-esque tattoo artist who's part of like a gangster family. And so, yeah, that's Spore City and Mushroom Blues. So,
Wow, this is like, Greenbone Saga meets,
yep,
meets
meets Blade Runner,
Blade
meets
Runner
The Last
meets
of Us.
and even like, you threw in the first pitch, that,
Annihilation.
and also murder of a dead child, Wash of Beach. Originally I thought Legacy, the Bright Wash, I just like, wow, just some phenomenal elements, very compelling, like, sounds just amazing. Something that we're definitely gonna wanna read.
Yeah. So I hope people like mushrooms. I hope they're not squeamish. There is quite a bit of, especially, well, no, both Mushroom Blues and Spore City have quite a lot of fungal body horror. So I hope you're into that. But at the same time, there's kind of like a lot of social commentary, a lot of me playing with history and commenting on history, and especially somewhere like Japan, which Taylor is very familiar with. I am obsessed with Japan, and Japanese history is something that's really, it's really formative for me. And to just be able to use science fiction and just storytelling to be able to explore my interactions with this society, and a place that I've had the honor of visiting and seeing firsthand, to be able to use a story for that, to me is really beautiful. So yeah.
The fungal body horror reminds me of Sorrowland by River Solomon. I don't know if you've read that.
I have not read that. Yeah.
They did some fantastic stuff with that, and that was my first experience with it. So, and I loved it. So I feel like I'm just over here doing this.
You're already initiated. You're good.
I'm over here excited. It's hitting all of these points that really sparked my attention. And also the way you described it, I can visually see it. So you're very good at putting the visual out there already. So I'm very hyped to be immersed in the world.
Yeah,
sure.
I'm very excited. Yeah, Crystal Matar, dead child washed up on the shores.
I've heard that before.
Yeah.
Different kind of tattoos, though. Yeah, but yeah, you inspire me, Crystal. Simple as that. So
wow, that is amazing. So I just want to confirm. So first book is tentatively scheduled for release early next year. Is that the timeline?
Mushroom Blues, right? It's coming out.
This is like first quarter of 2024, and then Spore City pretty much guaranteed like in the early fall. So I'm going to be doing like a double whammy, and then kind of just following that up as well as I can in the years to come. So
Mhm.
Oh, that's amazing.
yeah.
Amazing.
You
So
got
much
some
to look forward
pre-orders
to.
here.
Yeah, you're gonna get 2 pre-orders sold.
Oh, thank you guys.
Yeah, of course, of course. So just to kind of, this is to bring it back to the beginning, talking about interviewing, since it's something that we're all passionate about and we all do. Just a kind of fun question to throw out there. Do you still get nervous when you interview large authors? I'm curious.
No,
No? So you've
I've
gotten over that hump.
I've gotten over that hump.
Yeah.
A lot of authors, when they come on the show and they hang out with MJ and I, they're like, that was really chill. Like that was way
Yeah.
more laid back than they had thought, or that they had compared to previous experiences on podcasts or doing interviews and that kind of thing. And that's something that MJ and I really pride ourselves on, because it's just like us being us, and to give that space to an author to let them feel comfortable to you know, reveal a kind of deeper truth about themselves in a way where
Mhm.
a lot of interviews they might be a lot more guarded, and this is kind of like we're just having a conversation, and it's like being with you two where nothing feels forced, and you feel like you can reveal a bit more about yourself. And when it comes to authors, it's like at this point I'm like, it's not a whatever thing. I'm like, I'm really excited to talk to so and so, but I think going into it, I'm generally more appreciative of the fact that they take the time to talk with us, and I'm really excited to pick their brains about the various facets of how they got to where they are, kind of thing. Whether it's a debut author, whether it's an indie author, whether it's a trad author, a bestseller, like what have you, it doesn't matter. Everyone's got interesting stories to tell. That's why we're all doing this. We're all storytellers. So
Yep.
Yeah.
100% agree with that. I think if you go in purely wanting to just engage and know their story, it doesn't really matter what level of book world stratosphere they're in. That's been my experience as well.
yeah. Like if I were to like have the ridiculously unlikely chance to talk to like Neil Gaiman, I wouldn't feel afraid, because my curiosity and my desire to just learn about him and pick his brain and hear about his story far supersedes any shit that my personal self is trying to tell me that might hold me back from having a more genuine and meaningful experience with that person.
Yeah, no, that's very well said. I think, you know, it's funny, and like I feel like I'm getting there. I mean, perhaps you know, because I don't have the experience that you do, Adrian, the tenure in this space. But I do still have my fanboy, my my fanboy little momentary freak out moments, and then it disappears, right? And like you said, I think it just becomes a bunch of people having a great conversation, and you're just so interested in hearing what the person has to say,
Exactly.
and you forget that they are X, right? And I think, you know, one thing I've learned, I think, on the author side is that, you know, you never think, most authors, podcasters, would never think that they've become X, that they've attained a certain level of success, that they've attained a certain level of acclaim, or that people are looking up to them, right? And that's an eye opener when you realize that no, you know, like, and you still look at yourself, okay, I'm nobody, but then someone is looking up to you, and you get a DM that talks about how someone looks up to you, or looks up to what you said, or what you did, or what you wrote,
Or like
and
your
and
book
as
inspired me, or your book like made me feel such and such way. It's like, you know, my book made you cry.
yeah,
I would be like both at the same time, like so satisfied, and also like, you know, they're there. Like, I'm sorry that I did. But also deep down, like, yes, we did it.
yeah, like yes, you know, yeah. That stuff is, I mean, you as you progress in the space, and I think, you know, 99.9% of the space in people's space are quite humble, right? And that includes the biggest, you know, authors and bloggers you're going to talk to. They're quite humble, and they're quite, you know, self-effacing, and they're quite, you know, quickly the humanity of the situation comes out.
Mhm.
That again, like you said, you're just be talking to someone who you're trying to engage with them and find out about them. And I think Taylor and I have both had our moments where, ooh, inside you're like, oh, wow, because you've admired this
Yeah,
person's
sorry, I
books,
didn't
and
interrupt. It's like you doing that is so cute. Just like, oh.
yeah, you're like, oh, but yeah, like, but that
Little
fades,
tingling
right?
butterflies.
It's true. But now I think we are getting to that point, I think, for Taylor and I, where yeah, it's so much more about just you get talk to someone great, and that's it. But I know that when we first started, it felt that way. I think
Oh
Taylor,
yeah.
do you agree? Like,
Oh yeah. I mean, Fonda Lee is one of my favorite authors of all time, and when we had
Me
her
too.
on, I had a fangirl. I'm not gonna lie. I was like inside. I was like,
Fonda's
oh
just
my
generally
god,
amazing. She's so cool
she's
yeah,
a
as well.
yeah,
fantastic person
Yeah.
to work with. And that was probably one of the big humps after talking to her. I was like, wow, she's just a fantastic person. Like, there's
Yeah.
not much more to this interaction than that fact.
Hmm.
Um, but I wanted to, if anyone's watching this and they want to start a platform like the one you've created, where you have author roundtables or podcasts, or how would you advise someone to start going down that path? Because as we said earlier, there's room for all of us, right? We're not in competition. And if someone wants to kind of join this space in this capacity, what would you recommend to people to get
I
started?
mean, I have to start out with a caveat that I did start out with Fanfi Addict
True.
at
Very
my
true.
back.
Yes.
And the YouTube channel that we post podcast episodes to is there. The podcast is my baby and it's my creation and it's grown just from my effort. But Fanfi Addict has been integral to everything in terms of, you know, um, I host all the video episodes on the YouTube channel. Like I post every episode with like a blog post on the blog. David Walters and other people have helped me in terms of um, connecting to authors or connecting to publishers, where at this point it's like now the publishers reach out to me about interview opportunities as opposed to me having to seek them out all the time. And I mean it's kind of a weird thing to give advice just from my position, in the sense that like I just stumbled my ass through this. And so much of my life has just been serendipity. And it's like maybe at some point I'll get some super cliche serendipity tattoo on my body just for shits and giggles. But it feels like everything just happened because I did it, because I unconsciously made a choice that put me in a position where I took one step after another after another. And the only thing that I can tell people is like, if you want to do it, just do it. Don't go into it thinking that it's going to be impossible, because if you do that, you will never get past the starting line. So if you want to start a YouTube channel, just do it. If you want to start a podcast, just do it. If you want to reach out to authors, do it and figure out a way, and you'll be surprised at what kind of response you will get. I started my podcast from zero. I didn't exist in the book community before doing any of this. And now it's like not even 2 years into the podcast, talk to amazing authors, have a really solid audience, have an amazing co-host, was able to, direct TBR Con and really engage with the community that way and give back to the community. All these different things are just a result of me putting myself out there and saying yes when internally, my conscious mind might have been saying like, no, you don't have the time for that. Or no, you don't have the capability to do that. The best thing you can do is give yourself the leeway to figure out whether or not you can do something. And if you fail, fucking great. Failure is awesome. You learn from it, you pivot, you figure out something else that might work. And eventually, you will find the thing that clicks with you. You will find the thing that clicks with an audience. But if you never take that first step, you're fucking nowhere. So,
yeah, wow.
Very well said. We have here Teddy's World Journal. The hardest step is always the first step. After that, it's just a matter of keeping up the momentum. And I agree with that. Like you said, if it's something that it turns out is not for you, you'll know because the momentum will disappear.
Mhm.
But if it's something that you're passionate about and it is for you, I think that momentum will continue.
Exactly.
You know.
And it's like that
Yeah.
applies to writing, that applies to podcasting, that applies to YouTubing, whatever you want to do. It applies to everything in life. It's like if you can't even get over that first hurdle, if you can't even take that first step, then how are you convinced that you'll ever be capable of doing anything? It's like you have to trust yourself. You have to trust the possibility of failure. But with that comes the possibility of, you know, joy and friendship and community and success and love. Like, you know, the reason I'm in Ecuador, the reason I went to Berlin, you know, I was just a foolish fucking 20 something who decided, like, I'm going to follow my girlfriend across the world and did that twice. And I would take back nothing. I would not do any of it any other way. And I do not regret those decisions because they made me who I am. And to me, that is a blessing.
No, absolutely. And you know, and I have to say this, Adrian, you know, and you know, with all your talents, with all your skills, with all your passion, and you know, I have to give you kudos that I believe just from observing you from the outside, you're also an exceptional leader, you know, and in the community, and you know, I can see that from I had the privilege of, you know, I was honored when you know, it's like you want to talk about that moment, it's like, oh, you know, hey PL, you want to be part of, you know, TBR Con? I'm like, what, me? You know, like, and you know, I can say that you're hella organized, man, and you know you're someone who I think a lot of people look to now in the community for that kind of leadership, and you know you're so generous with your time, and you're so supportive. So those are also qualities I think that are only going to lend well to your future success as a writer now, this exciting new phase
Yeah.
that you're going into. So yeah,
Thank you, brother.
no doubt.
And MJ would be super happy. TBR Con was just like an Excel, just full on fucking Excel all the time. Like time zones, authors, panels, everything,
Checklists, right?
checklists, baby. But it
Yeah.
happened, and I'm super proud of it. So
It was impressive, man, without a hitch. You know, and I watched a lot of a lot of the chats. You know, you had the D&D sessions. You had, like, it was all just. I mean, it was a well-oiled machine, man. Seriously, like, hats off to you. It was like,
that
wow.
is how neurotic I am in day-to-day life. I might not seem like it.
No, you seem so chill, man. You seem like sit back and, you know, smoke a spliff and just kind of, yeah, what's going on?
Hang out.
Yeah.
No spliffs anymore. I can't do the tobacco. But yeah, like my life is just so much about checklists and about, because Taylor, you and I talked a little bit about this, just about like the balance thing. And
Yeah.
I think having a family has taught me how important it is to just be organized in life. You know, so much of my life I could live in such an unorganized way. And now I realize, like, you know, with kids, the best way to kind of navigate things from my personal experience and my perspective is to have a routine. And with routine comes an expectation of this thing is going to happen at this time, more or less. And with kids, obviously, there's a lot of variability, and there's a lot of potential for surprises and things like that. It's just like, oh, great, you shit your pants. Like, let's go deal with this. But having that routine and having that ability to organize my life around the fact that, like, okay, I know exactly what time my son goes to bed because I bathe him and I put him to bed, and I can coordinate something with you two to say, like, we're going to do a live stream at this time because I know for a fact he will be asleep. And those kinds of things are a saving grace to have that routine as someone who has a family. And I think even someone who doesn't have a family, it's like having routine is good for you to have, like, same bedtime every night, to eat around the same time every day. It's like human bodies work in rhythms, and the human body needs routine in order to maintain some sort of biological sense of like, this is what I can expect today. And it's the same with family. It's the same with projects. It's the same with friendships too. It's like your friendship needs to be sustained in a certain way. You need to have some routine there in order to be like, hey, I didn't forget about you, kind of thing. And so for me, it's like having an app on my phone to just have my to-do list for the day where I can divide it between like, morning and evening, to be able to like have this app called Things. And basically what it does is it has like synchronization across my MacBook and my phone. So I can just have my to-do list there. That's like my jam if I'm just thinking of stuff for story and I'm with my sons or I'm doing something. I just jot down some ideas there. And then later on in the evening, when I know it's like my son goes to sleep, that's my time for editing. That's my time for recording. That's my time for writing. Or I wake up early before anyone wakes up and do those things that time as well. But to be able to just jump on my computer and be like, okay, that cool idea that I had that applies to a certain scene, or, I'll just jot down like a dialogue, like something just pops into my head, be like, that's a really fucking cool dialogue, and just pop it in there on my phone, and then be able to go onto my computer later on and just basically like copy and paste that into my project doc and start to play around with it. It immediately gets me in the mindset of like, it's writing time. It's time to like get creative and play with this. And I've already got something to work with. And so just having that organization, whether it's like a virtual convention or it's just like your day to day with family, having that is absolutely vital. And it's always a work in progress and it's never perfect. You just got to roll with the punches and figure out what works best.
Yeah.
You're speaking to my checklist heart. I have one every single day. That is me. That is me. And I also have, you talk about getting into the writing mindset. I feel like balance for me helps if I have like time that I set aside for something, of course, but also like a good trigger to get me in that mood. So for example, hot green tea is my editing drink. Nice. So when I have that, my body goes, okay, we're editing now, So I think having things like that really helps me as well, kind of compartmentalize, okay, this time is for this time is for this.
Yeah, because like human beings are ritualistic, we've just gone from the ritual of the tribe sitting around the fire cooking and telling stories to each other, to we all live these virtual lives where there's a seeming disconnect. And I think that's for me has been such a saving grace about podcasting, is just interacting with people and socializing and getting to know them and building these relationships that have become very meaningful to me. It plays into things that are genetically coded into our DNA, that we crave certain things. Rituals help us to meet those cravings. And if you try to fuck with that too much, if you try to like live an unhealthy, unsustainable lifestyle, your body's going to respond to that, and it's going to respond badly. And, if you're living a toxic life, generally you're going to be toxic to yourself, but also toxic to the people around you. And it's not something that people don't notice. They notice. And if you're the kind of person, like what we were talking about earlier, that feels toxic, people are going to push away from you. And if you are toxic and you have a family, that's going to push you away from your family or your friends or your spouse or your partner or whoever. That kind of toxicity will never last. It is not sustainable.
Well, I can tell you that your habits, Adrian, are going to serve you well as you embark on your author journey, and it's going to keep you disciplined. It's going to keep you motivated, and it's going to get you through those, like you said, those inevitable bumps and unpredictable things that just, shit just happens, and you're like, oh, like I tried to download this from Amazon and it didn't work. Oh, yeah. What would I do now? Like that, because that is very much the life of of an independent author, right? And you're gonna have some glorious moments and some moments that are like, oh my god. But ultimately, we know you're gonna triumph. So we can't wait to be there to watch the journey. So
Thank you, man. And like speaking on
Yeah.
that, like all of the this is kind of why being a self-pub author speaks to me so much more. I was talking to Crystal about this. Every fuck up, every, just nosedive, whatever happens, all of it is on you. But I would prefer to have my failures and my mistakes fall into my lap where they are under my direct control. And I think this is another thing that kind of plays into why some people might go self-pub versus trad. And it's like so many of my trad friends have trouble just like getting an email response. And to me that is infuriating. And I'm an impatient person, but I'm impatient after a degree. It's like there's a lot of stuff that needs to happen before my patience is tried. But if I was going through the trad kind of route, I can already tell, just being an outsider viewing it through the lens of my friends, to be like, that would frustrate me beyond belief. Like such and such thing, like I don't even know my sales number. That would frustrate me beyond belief. Like all these different things. It's like if anything is wrong, it's on me, but that makes me happy because I have the potential and I have the power to fix it and make it better.
yeah, let's face it, self pubs got a bit of control freak thing going on, maybe just this a little bit, But you're exactly right, Adrian, and but also to the positive, as you pointed out, I think it's also people who have no problem with the accountability of taking on all of that on their shoulders, right? We don't have a problem with that kind of accountability, and we feel, I think, with self pub, you answer directly to so many things. You answer directly to your readers. You answer directly to your editor. You answer directly to everything. You choose your cover artists. You choose, like, there's so much stuff that there's no middle person. It's you, man. It's you call say, hey man, do you want to be my cover artist? Like it's so but we have no problem if things aren't going well or there's an issue, tackling head on because we have to, because there is no one else, right?
Yeah, but that's like the entrepreneurial kind of spirit of this path. And I think most self-pub authors deep down have that kind of like leader mentality in them, because they're like, they have the inherent capability, whether it needs to be honed or not, to delegate and take all these different pieces and form them together into a cohesive whole that becomes a book that people can order, and it lands in their front porch and they pick it up and they read it and they love it or they don't, or they think it's okay or whatever. But the fact that is possible today is amazing, that authors have the choice to go down these different paths and pick the one that feels right to them. Because no self-pub author now today, I guarantee none of them are like, this was my like absolute fallback plan. Like this is like, so many of them are going into it consciously. So many of them are going into it knowing that they will have to work their asses off. They will have to be marketers and accountants and creatives and all this at the same time. But at that point, it's like these, we love it. We do it because we can put our stories out there. And Teddy's World Journal, self-pub, I wonder what I have to do. Trad pub, I wonder where they go. That's another thing, Teddy. Thank you for bringing that up. Self-pub, that is where the trendsetters are. Trad pub is chasing the trends and making them more mainstream. But I love the idea of setting trends before chasing them. And that speaks to me so much more, like MJ was like, hopefully you become like the father of fungal punk, and that would just the title. Fucking put that.
That's awesome.
I'll put that in quotation marks between like everything that I do, like Adrian.
That's awesome.
Punk.
The father of fungal. That is
Talk
awesome.
about a tattoo. You got to get that as a tattoo.
Yeah. One of your blurbers has got to put that on on the cover of your books, like, Adrian Gibson is the father of punk. That's awesome.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, time is, oh my gosh, can you believe it? We're coming up on 2 hours. It's so easy to talk to you guys. It's amazing. But but just so we don't keep other people, our watchers, here for much longer. Not saying for behind the scenes how long we'll talk after that, but but before we go, I wanted to make sure that we give you a chance to tell people where they can look out for anything that you have coming down the pipeline, whether it's podcasts, roundtables, whether it's for your book, even if you're getting back into tattooing, or if you're, got a convention coming up, just let people know where they can find you in all of your capacities.
Cool. Well, yeah, first of all, thank you guys for having me on. I really appreciate it. You're both
anytime
beautiful people.
Thank you.
Yeah, so tattooing, I'm not tattooing actively, although I did tattoo family and friends while I was in Canada, which is really fun to get back into it. And in terms of the podcast, The Fungal Father.
The Fungal Father, I had to put that up.
Oh, that's awesome.
Good Lord.
And it's starting. The trend has already started. I'm glad. SFF Addicts is my podcast with my co-host MJ Kuhn. You can go pick up her Books Among Thieves and Thick as Thieves, and support what she does. You can find us on all the major platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, etc. You can also catch it in video on the Fanfi Addict YouTube channel. Every single episode is up there, and you can watch our whole back catalog. We have author roundtables once a month. The next one is going to be in mid-August on characterization through dialogue with Dave Ragg and a handful of really, really awesome authors. Look up next year for Mushroom Blues and Spore City. I'm going to hit you all with a double whammy in 2024, so I hope you all enjoy. Other than that, you can find me on Twitter, whatever it's called these days, Threads, Blue Sky, Instagram, at Adrian M. Gibson, and SFF Addicts. You can find that everywhere at SFF Addicts Pod. And yeah, just thank you both so much. This is a lot of fun.
Of course. Thank you so much for joining us. I also want to give
congratulations again on 50 episodes. Sorry.
Thank you. No, this is the best 50th episode. Like, I didn't have to do any planning. This came so naturally, so easy.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. But before we go, also, I want to give PL a chance to tell people where they can find him, your books, sir. Anything else you got going on the pipeline?
Yeah, quickly, once again, Adrian, you're so amazing. Thanks so much for coming. It was awesome, man. It just, makes this episode really special. I have to give a big shout out to my wonderful, talented co-host Taylor, because, 50 episodes is a big deal. And, you're part of what makes this such a big deal. The opportunity for me to get to work alongside you. So thank you for being the amazing person you are. And here's to 50, whatever plus more. So that we'll do together. So, I'm PL Stuart. I'm the author of the Drunk Kingdom Saga. The book stuff, www.plstuart.com. Usually you can find me on beside Taylor on her channel or my channel. My channel is the Drunk Kingdom Saga 7847. Just started up recently and learning the ropes from the vets like Taylor. But you can find, reviews and things like that there, and also page string episodes. Also an assistant editor. Have to give a shout out to the wonderful Beth Tabler from Before We Go blog. Taylor and I are both assistant editors there, and that space is amazing. Yeah, Beth is incredible, iconic in the community, and all our fellow bloggers are just phenomenal. So Before We Go blog, and all the socials, Twitter is what it is, Xterter. You can find me there mostly. I'm still hanging on. At PL Stuart writes. Same for Facebook and Instagram, though I'm not there as much as I probably should be, but that may be changing. But in any case, that's where you can find me. So
wonderful. Yeah, and of course, PL, thank you for being part of this. It's easy to forget this is the 50th episode because I feel like we just have so much, it brings us so much joy to do this, as all three of us have talked about throughout this whole time. So you kind of don't realize that you've done 50. But thank you to everyone who's watching. All of the links for all of Adrian's stuff, all of PL stuff, they will all be in the comments, not the comments, the description bar. I'm a YouTuber, I promise. In the description down below. So you can find all of that there. If you're somehow stumbled upon this and you don't know who I am, this is my channel, Made Between the Pages. I make book stuff on BookTube. You can find me at Before We Go blog. You can find me on Goodreads for some of my reviews. All of my links will be below as well. But
Also,
thank you so much.
Check out Taylor's new channel about her experiences in Japan.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Thank you for mentioning that. Yes, I did start a second channel, Made in Transit. Well, I restarted it because when I was a little itty-bitty baby, when I first moved here, I did start it. And I didn't know how to edit. And those videos, a lot of them are private now, let's just say. But I did restart it recently. So if you are interested in learning more about Japan or like kind of the more Japan-based content rather than just book-based, there is that channel as well.
And it's awesome. It is awesome. Wow. Yeah.
Thank you. I've got one coming down the pipeline of the difference between reality in Japan and anime. So that's taking quite a bit of editing, but
can't wait.
Working on it. Yeah. But thank you to everyone for joining us. Page chewing is only what it is because people engage and people watch, and we're able to be here because of you guys, truly. So thanks to everyone who's watching live or will watch later. And we're very excited to see you guys for the 51st episode coming soon. But for now, we're going to head out. See you guys.